They say there is one rule you must never break in the old northern woods. Never touch a sloe berry that screams.
People laugh when they hear it the first time. A berry screaming?
But if you walk deep enough into those forests, you will find a tree that does not move in the wind.
And berries that disappear before dawn. And one night, something did scream. Something small, sharp, and almost human. The sound came from a bush along a narrow trail, just before a storm rolled in.
It was high and trembling, like a child calling for help. No one knew what made it, but that sound would become the center of a story that people still whisper today. I first heard the tale from an old forester named Eamon. His hands shook while he spoke, even though he tried to hide it by folding them together. He walked slow, as if each step reminded him of something heavy he didn't want to remember. He said softly,
I should have never touched that berry.
but I thought it was hurt.
Eamon had gone into the woods to check traps near the marsh. His boots were wet. His breath forked in the cold morning air. And he carried the same old worry he always had, that he wasn't strong enough to care for his little niece anymore after her parents died.
He whispered to himself, just finish the work and go home. But the forest felt different that day, thinner somehow, like something was watching from behind the trees. The warning came when the wind suddenly stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Leaves hung still, mid-motion, like they were afraid to move. Then he heard a small crack behind him, a branch breaking under a tiny, unseen foot. He turned fast and saw nothing but the trap he had set the night before had been torn apart, metal bent like soft clay. He stared at it, confused, and whispered, no animal could do this.
And then he noticed something on the ground. A small, dark berry crushed under the broken trap, leaking a thin line of black juice.
That was when he heard the scream.
Not from the trees, not from any animal.
It came from the berry lying at his feet.
Eamon froze. The sound was thin and sharp, like air being pushed through a tiny throat. He stepped back, his heart racing, and the forest around him went cold. He had heard stories growing up, stories about the Screaming Sloe, but he had never believed them. His grandmother used to warn him, if the berry screams, do not answer, do not touch it, and whatever you do, do not let the trees see you. He always thought it was just a tale to keep children close to home, but now the memory hit him hard, warm and soft like a hand on his shoulder from long ago. He whispered, Nana,
You were right.
He bent down slowly, not to pick up the berry, but to look closer.
It pulsed once, like a heartbeat under the skin. Then the scream faded into a soft, tiny sob. He felt something move inside him, a strange mixture of fear and pity.
He whispered, Are you
Alive?
Of course.
It didn't answer, but the sound had changed, and for a moment, he almost smiled. The forest softened again, like it was letting him breathe.
He stepped back and wiped his hands on his coat. A quiet peace settled over the marsh. For one moment, everything felt still and normal again. A bird even chirped a simple note.
But peace in these woods never lasts long. Eamon turned toward the trail and froze. There were footprints on the ground that hadn't been there earlier, long, narrow, and pointed, almost like hooves, but too thin to belong to any deer. They circled him, and each one crushed a sloe berry flat into the dirt.
He whispered, It followed me, and the forest answered with a low hum, like something breathing through the branches. Then, very slowly, the sloe bush beside him shifted. Not in the wind, there was no wind, but as if something beneath it was crawling. Eamon stepped back again, but his heel caught on a root. He almost fell, and the moment his hand brushed against a branch, all the berries hanging there let out a short, sharp scream at the same time. Dozens of tiny voices, rising into the cold air.
He clapped his hands over his ears, eyes wide. His breath shook. He thought, I shouldn't have touched anything.
I shouldn't have come alone, but it was too late. Branches behind him creaked, one after another, slow and rhythmic like footsteps. He didn't look back, he couldn't. He just whispered, Please?
No, because he already knew the old stories. Something always came when the berries cried. And then he heard it. A low dragging sound, like long fingers pulling through leaves. A faint wet sniffing, as if something was searching for the berry he had touched. And a thin, breathy voice whispering between the trees. Mine.
Eamon finally ran. He crashed through the branches, slipping on roots, mud splashing up his legs. His breath tore in his chest, but he didn't stop. Behind him, He heard the dragging sound again faster now, and the forest seemed to shift out of his way, as if afraid to touch whatever followed him.
He reached the riverbank, panting hard. Water rushed cold and clear over smooth stone. He bent down, shoulders shaking, and splashed his face. The cold brought a tiny relief, a moment of quiet in the chaos. A memory came to him, his niece laughing by this very river months ago. Her small hand in his. He promised her then that he would protect her from everything. But now, he wondered if he could even protect himself.
Just let me.
He whispered, "Just let me get home."
Just let me get home. For a moment, it seemed the forest listened. The wind returned, gentle and cool. Birds called again in the distance. Eamon felt a small, weak smile touch his lips.
Then he saw the tree. Across the river, half hidden behind a curtain of mist, stood a blackthorn tree larger than any he had ever seen. Its branches curled downward like claws, and hanging from those branches were sloe berries.
Each one trembling softly, as if breathing. The mist shifted, and something tall moved behind the trunk. Eamon's blood ran cold. He whispered, "No, not the tree. Not the real one," his grandmother had told him. The Screaming Sloe did not grow anywhere ordinary. It grew only where something ancient fed on fear. A shape stepped out from behind the trunk. Tall, thin, too long in the arms and legs. Its skin looked like dark bark stretched over bone, and where a face should be.
There were only rows of tiny openings, like the mouths of berries. They all screamed at once. The force hit Eamon like a wave. He stumbled backwards, hands over his ears, eyes shutting tight. The sound climbed higher, sharper, almost cutting into him. And then it stopped.
Silence. He opened his eyes slowly. The creature stood still, head tilted, as if studying him. Its long fingers pointed toward the crushed berry in the trap behind him.
A cold voice pushed into his mind.
Not spoken, felt.
"You touched what is mine." Eamon couldn't speak.
His throat closed.
His knees trembled so hard he thought he would fall into the river.
He backed away one slow step at a time. The creature did not move. It only watched him. The berries on its branches shivered in fear or hunger. He couldn't tell. And the forest held its breath. Eamon whispered, "I didn't know."
"I'm sorry."
The creature tilted its head farther, like a curious child.
Then a single berry fell from its branch into its hand. It squeezed gently.
And the berry screamed. Eamon ran again. He crossed the river so fast he slooped twice on the rocks. He didn't care.
He pushed through brambles, through mud, through thorn and shadow, until he saw the cabin lights through the trees. His lungs burned, his legs shook. But he didn't stop until he reached the door. He slammed it shut, locked it, and slid down to the floor.
For a long time, he just sat there, head in his hands. He could still hear the scream in his ears. He whispered, "Never again. I will never go near that tree again." But the story didn't end that night.
2 days later, Eamon found something on his windowsill.
A single sloe berry, dark, cold,
And trembling, he didn't touch it. He never went back to the marsh after that.
Some nights, he said he could hear soft crying in the trees outside, like something small searching for the one who had touched it. And sometimes, very late, he heard the dragging footsteps again,
moving closer to his cabin door.
Eamon died many years ago, but people still avoid the deep northern woods. They still hear strange cries in the branches during storms, and every so often, someone finds a small berry lying alone on a trail.
Shaking as if afraid, they say the creature still searches, still waits, still listens for the sound of footsteps near its tree.
And the old rule remains, whispered from one generation to the next. If you ever hear a berry scream in the forest, turn back before it stops.